In front of me is the FX Biathlon. This rifle is probably 20 years old now, and the reason I chose it for a review as against say a Mark III or a Panthera is that this is a prime example of where a company has come from, and I think it should be interesting. I don't expect it to score particularly well, and I'll explain why, but hey, stick around, find out, hope you enjoy it. The GunLocker is proudly brought to you by Insurite. For information on what Insurite has to offer and how they can help you, visit their website www.insurite.me. Hello and welcome to the GunLocker, and welcome to another part 1 design and build review, this time with the FX Biathlon. And like I said in the intro, the rifle is almost 20 years of age. Now, I picked this one against an M3, against a Panthera, because like I said in the intro, this is where FX started, and it's nice to go back in history a little bit, because then you can see the progression. Now, the strange thing is, even though FX now is well famous, you know, and with regards to design and build, with regards to ergonomics, you're going to struggle to find rifles that are better. You really are, because they are just so adaptable. You know, the after sales market is huge, it's massive. And people are drawn to them because you can do whatever you like with those rifles. But they had to start somewhere, and they started, you know, with rifles like this, with the Biathlon, the target rifle. Now, Fredrik Axelsson, like I said in that intro, he was and still is a passionate airgun enthusiast. You know, there's no two ways about it. The guy is well famous, and whenever you get to see anything online about him, you can tell that he knows what he's talking about 100%, and he's the sort of guy that I admire, because he couldn't find what he wanted, so he built it. Reminds me a lot of my father in one way, because my father was a toolmaker, so you know, at the end of the day, if he didn't have the tools to do a particular job, he would make them. People like that are, you know, they're gifted. There's no two ways about it. So we're going back in history, and it's not, you know, it's not a long history by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, the company was founded in 1999 in Mariestad, Sweden. So it's, what, 24 years old. But what Mr. Axelsson has done in that short space of time has really put his stamp on the airgun scene across the globe. You know, he really has. What we have here, at first glance, is something that has been built and constructed to an industrial standard. You know, there's no messing about here. It's not going to deteriorate quickly, and it hasn't done. Yeah, it's got some knocks, it's got some scratches, it's got some scuffs, which is what you'd expect, but that's through no fault of the build quality. That's through maybe a little lack of care from the previous owners, but it's good, honest use. What can I say about the rifle? Well, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, I can tell you now it's not going to score well. Not for the design and build side, because I've got so many categories that I cover, and with the way the airgun scene has evolved over these last, say, 30 years, you know, they've just changed so much, and we have to look at the whole scene now. But let me go through some tech specs with the rifle first, and then we'll go on to the scoring side. And honestly, guys, when you listen to the scores at the end, please do not be detracted from the fact that this is what looks to be a very well made and constructed rifle. I haven't shot it yet. It's the weather at the moment is really quite frustrating. Every time I go out to, you know, do a little bit of accuracy testing or pellet testing, it starts to rain, and I'm just waiting for a break. So it's annoying me a little bit, but hence we got, you know, more part ones coming. Anyway, let's talk about this. So Biathlon Mark 1, it has been superseded by the Mark II, and if you want to get the technical full information for that rifle, please pop onto FX's website. There's very little information with regards to this rifle online, so I'm just going to give you what I've gathered, and then hopefully I'll find out a bit more once I do part 2 of this review, and I'll give you those figures. So what is it? Well, it's obviously a PCP, a pre-charged pneumatic, and it's a .177. Now this rifle is on sale by theGunLocker in Stafford, and the ticket price is £899. Now that's obviously not cheap, but for a rifle of this quality, you know, it's not expensive, and you're talking about a little bit of history now as well. Do I think it's worth it? Well, on the face of it, I'm glad it's priced at, you know, £900, because they weren't cheap when they, you know, were first introduced to the market, and FXs aren't cheap now. So for them to be holding their money, that's, you know, that's good, that's encouraging. What comes with the rifle? Well, it has a filler probe. So for that £899, what you see is what you get, except for the bipod. It's just a basic rifle with one filler probe. Now, talking a little bit more about the rifle itself, if we focus on the stock for the moment, obviously it has an Anschutz style grip. It's a synthetic stock. It's really quite, it reminds me a lot of the Scandinavian rifles. It reminds me of, I've mentioned it in my previous reviews of my Tikka M55, had a similar stock to this. It's built for a purpose, you know. There's no two ways about it. It's a good design that works. It's not particularly fancy, but it is adjustable. So I'm going to swing this around so you can see. So on the back of the stock here, you have an adjustable cheek piece and you have an adjustable butt pad. No tools required, you just unscrew and you pull out. Yeah, and it works. It works, and that back pad obviously goes up and down as well. It's slightly offset, so although it's ambidextrous, you can swap this around, you know, so it can be for left-handers and right-handers. Obviously in this format it's set for right-hander because you've got all the fixing screws on this side of the butt. Apart from that, the cocking lever is fixed on the right hand side, so that can't be swung round to the left hand side. And it has a short stroke, which basically it's a finger and thumb action. So you cock with your finger and you feed that probe back in with your thumb. Very, very sweet design. I'm just going to decock that. Very, very sweet design. And what I particularly like as well is when you go for the cocking lever, there's a little bit of a release there, there's a magnet on that end, but the cocking lever does actually move slightly as well. So it's sweet, it's very, very sweet. What else can I tell you about it? Well, so again, it's a little bit difficult because I'm trying to work from measuring the cylinder. I don't know the thickness of the cylinder's walls, so to give you a capacity, I'm guessing it's round about 190 cc, and it has a fill pressure, max fill pressure of 200 bar or 2900 psi. There's nothing more really that I can say about it. I don't believe it's regulated because the chassis is such that there doesn't appear to be any room for it. What else can I say? Well, with regards to its energy, so how many foot-pounds it's kicking out, if you look on FX's website, the Mark II for export is kicking out 11.8 foot-pounds or 16 joules. I'm gonna kind of, now would I assume that it would be the same? No, I wouldn't. I'd have to give you those figures once I run it over the chrono, and I'll do that in part 2. Shot count per fill, there's no information, so I couldn't tell you until I did the test. Now on top of the chassis, we've got an 11mm dovetail rail for a scope, and we've also got one at the end here on the muzzle brake or air stripper. So obviously that will allow for open sights, or a scope on the chassis if you want it. The rifle itself is 990mm long, and it has, or 38.98 inches, and its centre of balance is 435mm from the butt to roughly where my finger is. I think it's about there. The reach from the butt to the trigger is 340mm. Now obviously if you extend the butt, you've got 25mm or 1 inch of play there, so that's going to have a bearing on the length. It doesn't have a shrouded barrel, but that barrel is 497mm long from the breech to the muzzle end. Obviously the barrel has been threaded and it's got a 1/2 inch UNF, so you can put a sound moderator on there if you'd like, and I'll find out how loud it is in part 2. And that 97mm equates to 19.57 inches. Now this barrel is lined, and it has a barrel wall thickness, including the liner, of 4.71mm. And that really is all I can tell you about its technical specs. So there's not a lot really I can say. It doesn't have all the fine adjustments that you'll get on an M3. So it doesn't have a plenum, it doesn't have the plenum adjuster, so you don't have a whole run of gauges. You've only got a gauge on the end of the cylinder there. It doesn't even have a safety, and it's one of the reasons why it's not going to score highly now. So again, I'll give you the figures, but I don't want those figures to detract from the rifle itself. It's obvious that part 2, accuracy and performance, is going to be where this rifle should stand out. So anyway, let's talk about the 5-star ratings that I've given it. So initially, aesthetics. Now we all know aesthetics is a very personal opinion. Because it's a Scandinavian rifle, because it has that Anschutz grip and stock, which reminds me so much of my Tikka, because of the use of materials, its robustness, all of it, and I do like the simplicity of the stock at the back. The simplicity in that it's very easy to use, and the buttons here to undo and tighten up. because they're so wide, it's very easy to do. You're not looking for tools, you're not struggling against a small head. It's lovely. Overall, put a scope on this and it's going to look great. So in my mind, I've given it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I think that's a valid score. Now, with regards to ergonomics, and again, you've seen my previous reviews, you know what my thoughts are on ergonomics. It's about product, how adaptable it is to the end user, not necessarily what it's been designed to do, or how, in its current state, but how it can be adapted. And it's sorely lacking, but you'd expect it to be because it's 20 years old. However, let's talk about the butt. So it has an ambidextrous butt. It has a butt pad that's adjustable, goes in and out, goes up and down, and it has an adjustable cheek piece that goes up and down. What else can I say? The grip is ambidextrous, so you'll probably be able to see here. I'm just making sure that the camera can zoom in on that. It's very even in its design. Some multi-hand positioning, you can wrap your thumb around, but there's a ridge here that makes it uncomfortable, and it kind of lends itself towards being a thumbs up shooter. Also, the fact that you have the button on the end here lends itself to it being a thumbs up shooter. And with regards to the stock itself, is it resistant to weather? Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been used and it has got some marks on it, but they're honest marks. With regards to the metalwork, so you can have even open sights, although they're not here with this rifle, but it's got the rails to accommodate that. It's got the 11mm dovetail on top, but it doesn't have a universal rail like it's so commonplace with a lot of rifles coming out today, where they've got Picatinny, Weaver, dovetail all in one. It is threaded with a 1/2 inch UNF, so you can put a moderator on if you like. What else have we got here? So the barrel's lined, and now I'm assuming that you can remove that liner and replace it. I'm not quite sure how you do that. That's got some fixing screws on the top here, but again, with having so little information about the gun, and I don't like stripping rifles when they're not mine, I can only assume that that's what you can do. What else have we got here? Quick coupler, so it's just a fill probe that you push in. Unfortunately, I prefer the Foster fill fittings, but this is just a probe. I'm assuming it's got a 2-stage adjustable trigger, but again, it's nothing that you can adjust easily from having the chassis within the stock. It's it's something that you'd have to take out of its stock, and again, I'm not prepared to do that. The bluing on the rifle, on the barrel, is lovely. It is, as I say again, it's showing signs of age, but it's still very, very good quality. The finish to the chassis itself, the brass work, there's nothing to fall out with. The brass could do with a bit of a polish, but that's just, that's a little bit of aesthetics. And then with regards to its fit, well, for me, it's very good. It fits me nicely. I've already put it to the shoulder. The fact that I can move this in and out, the fact that I can move this cheek piece up and down, it's very, very nicely balanced. Yeah, I've given it 4 out of 5 stars for fit, but unfortunately, with regards to the stock, because it only scored 11 out of 24, it gains 3 out of 5 stars. The metalwork for ergonomics, there's not a lot here. There's not a lot I can really mark it on, so it only gave me a score of 9 out of 30, which knocks it right back down to 1.5 out of 5 stars. Again, we're talking about a rifle that's 20 years old. Put an FX here and you're talking 5 out of 5 stars for ergonomics, and that's the transformation. That's what 24 years of developing rifles and technology and the after sales market has done to FX. It's gone from, you know, being quite a minimalistic gun to something that you can do whatever you like with. So overall for ergonomics, it's only scored 2.8 out of 5 stars. Again, it's not a bad score. You know, back in the day, this would have been right up there, but you know, times move on, didn't they? Now, with regards to build quality, looking at the rifle from the outside, bearing in mind it's 20 years of age, and you know, it's stood the test of time. For the most part, it's scored 4 out of 5 stars. The air system, I'm having to knock that down a little bit. You know, it's 3.5 out of 5 stars. The reason being is obviously we've got a fill probe there, and as with these things, you know, when you put that probe in, you can always hear that little bit of hissing, but I'm being so pedantic here, really. Should it be 3.5? Should it be 4? From what I can see, probably, let me have a look. No, I'll go 3.5, because in all honesty, the manometer at the end there, make sure that you can see that, is actually quite difficult to read. It's not as easy as you'd like. Plus, because the dial's so small, you've got to get in quite close to see it, and you are looking right down the dangerous end of the rifle. The other thing is, the rifle doesn't have a safety, so yeah, it's not something that you particularly want to do. So when you're filling this, go off the gauge off your bottle. Now, so the other part that I always talk about in my part 1's design and builds is safety, and it doesn't have one, so I can't give it a score, 0 out of 5, and that's one of the reasons why the overall score comes to 2.6 out of 5 stars. Now, had it had a safety, you know, even a basic one, then that would have upped that figure, no doubt, to well over 3 out of 5 stars. So there you have it, guys. This is the FX Biathlon. This is the part 1 design and build over and done with. I'm really hoping that we're going to get a break in the weather. I've looked at the forecast, and tomorrow it's supposedly quite nice all day, so there's going to be a few guns that are going to be tested at a time, because they are racking up at the moment. I've got the Muddy Girl from Crowell, I've got the P1000 from Diana, I've got this, I've got 2 BSAs to talk about, and I've got a custom made Crowell MP03. So they are racking up, and I'm desperately waiting for a decent break in the weather to be able to do it. I hope you've enjoyed this review. As always, please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Thank you to everybody that, you know, watches my reviews, because we've now got over 4,300 hours of view time for a channel that's been in existence slightly under 6 months. That is amazing. So guys, thank you very much. Yeah, and share amongst your friends and family, of course, and hopefully I'll see you in part 2. So for now, bye bye.